The military base on Kepler 442b was busy that morning. Soldiers from 12 different alien species walked through the corridors, preparing for their final training exercises. The base was enormous, with tall metal walls and bright lights that hummed softly. Outside the windows, the planet's purple sky stretched endlessly. Captain Zixthor stood in the observation room, watching the recruits below. His scales were dark green today, showing his calm mood. He was a Valkyrian, a species known for their skill in warfare. Zixthor had fought in 3 major wars across the galaxy. He had commanded ships and led soldiers into battle. His chest carried medals that proved his bravery and experience. Today felt different, though. The Coalition had given him a strange assignment. He was supposed to observe a human training instructor. This puzzled him greatly. Humans were new to the galaxy. Their planet had only discovered faster-than-light travel 10 years ago. They were newcomers who knew nothing about real galactic warfare. Zixthor checked his datapad again. The instructor's name was Danny Cooper. He was a former sergeant from Earth's military forces. His record showed no command of spaceships, no experience with alien combat, and no advanced tactical training. The captain's scales shifted to a slightly orange color, showing his doubt and irritation. Why would the Coalition put such an inexperienced person in charge of training their soldiers? It made no sense. Zixthor had trained thousands of warriors in his career. He knew what made a good instructor. This human seemed to have none of the required qualifications. The door opened behind him. Zixthor turned and saw a human walking in. The man was average height, maybe 1.7 meters tall. He had short brown hair and wore a simple training uniform. He carried an old datapad under his arm and had a relaxed smile on his face. He looked like he was going to a casual meeting, not a military training session. "Captain Zixthor?" the human asked, his voice friendly and calm. "I am Captain Zixthor," the Valkyrian replied stiffly. His translator device clicked softly as it converted his words into the human's language. "You must be Instructor Cooper." "That's me. Just call me Danny." The human extended his hand forward, palm open. It was a human greeting gesture that Zixthor had read about but never seen in person. The captain did not take the offered hand. Instead, he straightened his posture and spoke formally. "I have been assigned to observe your training methods, Instructor Cooper. I must tell you that I have reviewed your military record. You have no command experience. You have never led fleet operations. Your world has only fought wars on one planet. I question why the Coalition chose you for this position." Danny lowered his hand, but his smile did not fade. "You're absolutely right, Captain. I'm not a fleet commander or a strategic genius, but I have something your troops need to learn." Experience from a Deathworld. Zixthor had heard this term before. Earth had been classified as a Class 12 Deathworld by Coalition scientists. The captain thought this was typical human exaggeration. Every species thought their homeworld was challenging. The Valkyrians had to deal with large predators and seasonal storms. That was normal. Surely Earth could not be much worse. "We shall see," Zixthor said coldly. "The training exercise begins in 10 minutes. The recruits are waiting in the main hall." They walked together through the corridors. Danny moved with an easy, casual walk that seemed wrong for a military base. He did not march or move with the precise steps that proper soldiers used. Zixthor's scales flickered orange again. The main training hall was massive. 200 recruits stood in organized rows. There were Valkyrians with their green scales, Trathenians with their multiple eyes, Quixley with their tentacles, and many others. They all wore standard Coalition training uniforms and carried practice equipment. Zixthor stood to the side while Danny walked to the front of the group. The human did not shout or demand attention. He simply stood there and waited until everyone noticed him and became quiet. "Good morning, everyone," Danny said in a normal speaking voice. "My name is Danny Cooper. I'm from Earth, and I'm here to teach you some things about survival and combat that you might not have learned before." Some of the recruits exchanged glances. A few looked confused. One Valkyrian recruit whose scales showed a doubtful purple color raised his hand. "Instructor, what qualifies you to teach Coalition soldiers?" The recruit asked. It was a bold question, but not disrespectful. Danny nodded, appreciating the honesty. "Fair question. I served 8 years in Earth's military. I fought in mountain warfare, desert combat, and urban environments. I've survived situations that would be considered impossible by most Coalition standards. Not because I'm special, but because I'm human, and humans come from a world that's constantly trying to kill us." The recruits stirred. Zixthor watched carefully. wondering how the human would handle their skepticism. "Let me start today's lesson by watching you perform a basic survival exercise," Danny continued. "Show me what you've learned so far." For the next hour, the recruits went through their training routine. They demonstrated survival techniques, showed how to use their equipment, and followed standard coalition protocols. They performed well. Everything was done by the book, exactly as military doctrine required. Danny watched silently from the side, making notes on his datapad. Zixthor noticed that the human's expression changed from friendly to thoughtful. He seemed to be analyzing everything carefully. When the exercise finished, Danny called everyone to gather around him. The recruits formed a circle, sitting or standing according to their species' comfort. "You all did exactly what you were trained to do," Danny said. "You followed the rules perfectly. Everything was precise and correct. But I want to tell you a story about survival training on Earth, and then we'll talk about a different approach." Zixthor stepped forward. "Instructor Cooper, we have a schedule to maintain. Stories are not part of the training curriculum." Danny turned to look at the captain. His expression was still friendly, but there was something firm in his eyes. "Captain, with respect, this is part of my training method. The Coalition hired me specifically for this. Please trust me." Zixthor's scales shifted through several colors rapidly. He was not used to being questioned, even politely. But his orders were clear. He was to observe, not to interfere. He gave a sharp nod and stepped back. Danny turned back to the recruits. "When I was 18 years old, I joined Earth's military. They sent me to a training facility in a hot, humid region. The temperature was about 35 degrees Celsius every day. The humidity was over 80%. You could barely breathe because the air was so thick and wet. Several recruits shifted uncomfortably. Those temperatures were dangerously high for many species. On our third week of training, the instructors took us to a swamp," Danny continued. "That's a wetland area with stagnant water, thick mud, and dense vegetation. They gave us minimal supplies and told us we had 3 days to reach an extraction point 20 kilometers away. We had to navigate through this swamp, find food and water, and survive whatever we encountered." A Trithenian recruit raised one of her long fingers. "Instructor, why would your military deliberately put you in dangerous conditions? That seems wasteful and cruel." Danny's expression became more serious. "Because on Earth you don't get to choose safe conditions. Earth doesn't care about what's convenient for humans. Let me tell you what we faced in that swamp." He held up his hand and pinched his thumb and finger together, showing a tiny space. "First, there were mosquitoes. Small flying insects about this big. They travel in swarms of thousands. They land on your skin and bite you to drink your blood. Each bite swells up, itches for days, and the insects can carry diseases that kill you." The recruits looked shocked. Several made sounds of disgust or disbelief. "Then there were snakes," Danny went on. "Long reptilian creatures that hide in the water or hang from trees. Some have venom that can kill a human in hours. We carried anti-venom in our medical kits, but you had to identify which snake bit you and give yourself the correct treatment quickly, or you would die." Zixthor felt his scales shifting to a pale blue color. He was beginning to pay very close attention. These details matched the environmental data he had seen about Earth, data he had previously dismissed as exaggerated. "The water itself was dangerous," Danny said. "It contained bacteria that cause infections. There were leeches that attached to your skin and drain your blood. The mud could trap you if you stepped wrong. At night, the temperature dropped and we had to stay dry or risk hypothermia. During the day, the heat could cause heat stroke if we didn't stay hydrated." He paused and looked around at all the faces watching him. "And you know what? All of my unit survived. Every single person made it through. That wasn't even considered a particularly dangerous exercise by Earth standards. It was just basic training, just Tuesday for us." The training hall was completely silent now. Every recruit was staring at Danny with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. Zixthor's scales had turned completely pale blue, a color that indicated shock and recalculation of previous assumptions. For the first time since the human had arrived, the captain began to wonder if perhaps the Coalition knew exactly what they were doing when they hired Danny Cooper. Word spread quickly through the military base. Within 3 days, Danny's training sessions became the most popular events on Kepler 442b. Soldiers who were not even assigned to his program found excuses to attend. The observation galleries filled with curious aliens who wanted to hear more stories about the human Deathworld. Zixthor attended every single session. He told himself it was his duty as the assigned observer. But truthfully, he was fascinated. Each story Danny told challenged everything the captain thought he knew about planetary environments and survival. On the fourth day, nearly 300 soldiers crowded into the main training hall. Danny stood at the front looking relaxed as always. He had a talent for making everyone feel comfortable, even when he was about to describe something terrifying. "Today we're going to talk about weather," Danny announced. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. The blue and green planet rotated slowly in the air above him. "Most of your homeworlds have stable climates. You get some seasonal changes, but they're predictable. You can plan around them. Earth doesn't work that way." He touched his datapad and the hologram changed. Now it showed a massive spiral of white clouds, swirling like a giant pinwheel in the sky. The storm system was enormous, covering an area larger than some of the smaller coalition planets. "This is called a hurricane," Danny explained. "It's a tropical storm with winds that exceed 300 kilometers per hour. The one you're seeing here was named Hurricane Linda. It hit the southern coast of North America when I was stationed in Louisiana, one of our coastal states." A Valkyrian recruit named Zoth spoke up. "Surely your people evacuated immediately? Such a storm would destroy any settlement." Danny nodded. "Most civilians evacuated, yes. But I was in the National Guard at the time. That's a military force that helps with emergencies. My unit stayed behind to secure important buildings and prepare for rescue operations after the storm passed." He showed images of the hurricane making landfall. The videos showed trees bending almost horizontal in the wind. Buildings lost their roofs. Cars were tossed around like toys. Water surged inland, flooding entire neighborhoods. "We stayed in a reinforced concrete building while the hurricane hit," Danny said quietly. "The building shook constantly. The sound was like standing next to a spacecraft engine. It lasted for 6 hours. When the storm finally passed, we came out and saw that whole sections of the city were underwater. The storm surge brought 4 meters of water inland from the ocean. The alien soldiers were completely silent. Many looked disturbed by what they were seeing. My unit spent the next 2 weeks rescuing people from flooded buildings and delivering food and water to survivors," Danny continued. "That's just one type of Earth weather. Let me show you another." The hologram changed again. This time it showed a different kind of storm. A dark funnel cloud descended from the sky, touching the ground and spinning with incredible violence. "This is a tornado," Danny said. "It's a rotating column of air with winds that can exceed 400 kilometers per hour. Tornadoes can appear with very little warning, sometimes just 10 minutes before they form. I've seen one pick up a car and throw it half a kilometer through the air." A Quixley officer named Praxel waved one of his tentacles. "How often do these tornadoes occur?" "The United States gets about 1,000 tornadoes every year," Danny answered. "They can destroy entire towns in minutes. We build special underground shelters to hide in when tornadoes come. Some areas have warning sirens that tell people to take cover immediately." The aliens exchanged worried looks. 1,000 disasters every single year, just in one region of one planet. It seemed impossible. Danny was not finished. "Then we have earthquakes. Earth's surface is made of large plates that slowly move and grind against each other. Sometimes they slip suddenly and the ground shakes violently. Buildings collapse, roads crack open, bridges fall down." He showed footage of earthquake damage. Entire city blocks reduced to rubble. Highways twisted like ribbons, people digging through debris to find survivors. "I lived through a magnitude 6.8 earthquake when I was 12 years old," Danny said. "I was at school when it hit. The ground rolled in waves like the ocean. The buildings swayed back and forth. We thought it would collapse on us. Glass windows shattered. The power went out across the entire city. We had no electricity for a week. Zixthor could not stay quiet any longer." "How does your civilization survive such conditions?" "These would be extinction-level events on most worlds." Danny turned to look at the captain. "We build for it, Captain. Our engineers design buildings that can flex during earthquakes. We construct hurricane-resistant structures in coastal areas. We create early warning systems and evacuation plans. But more than that, we adapt. Humans are very good at adapting. We've been doing it for millions of years." He pulled up a new image. This one showed a landscape of pure white ice and snow. The sky was dark and filled with swirling snow. Nothing lived in this frozen wasteland. "This is Antarctica, Earth's southern pole," Danny explained. "Temperatures drop to minus 90 degrees Celsius. Winds reach 300 kilometers per hour regularly. It's the driest, windiest, and coldest place on Earth. Almost nothing can survive there naturally." Yet humans go there, Zixthor said. It was not a question. He was beginning to understand how humans thought. Scientists live there year-round, Danny confirmed. They conduct research on climate, geology, and astronomy. They stay in specially designed bases that can withstand the extreme conditions. It's one of the harshest environments on our planet, and we chose to live there anyway because we wanted to learn about it. A Trithenian soldier named Voss raised her hand. Instructor, I have studied your planet's classification. Earth is rated as a Class 12 death world. But these storms and earthquakes, they are natural disasters that any civilization might face occasionally. What makes Earth so uniquely dangerous? Danny smiled, but there was something dark in his expression. I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you about Earth's wildlife. For the next hour, Danny described creatures that seemed designed to kill. He told them about great white sharks, predators that could bite with 18,000 newtons of force and detect blood in water from 5 kilometers away. He described saltwater crocodiles that could wait motionless for hours, then explode into violent action faster than most species could react. He showed them videos of grizzly bears, massive creatures weighing 800 kilograms that could run at 50 kilometers per hour. He explained how these bears could smell food from 30 kilometers away and had claws as long as human fingers. Africa has lions that hunt in coordinated groups, Danny said. We have venomous snakes that can kill with a single bite. Australia has spiders the size of dinner plates. The oceans contain jellyfish with toxins that can stop your heart in minutes. The alien soldiers were visibly disturbed now. Several had moved closer together, unconsciously seeking the comfort of their groups. But you know what the most dangerous animal on Earth is? Danny asked. He paused for effect. The mosquito, the same tiny insect I mentioned before. The recruits looked confused. How could a small blood-sucking insect be worse than sharks and bears? Mosquitoes kill more humans every year than any other animal, Danny explained. About 700,000 deaths annually. They carry diseases like malaria, dengue fever, yellow fever, and many others. We've been fighting mosquitoes for our entire existence as a species, and they're still winning. He pulled up microscopic images of various bacteria and viruses. Earth is a paradise for diseases. We have bacteria that can eat your flesh. We have viruses that attack your nervous system. We have parasites that burrow into your skin and live inside your body. We have a disease called rabies that has a near 100% fatality rate once symptoms appear. Zixthor felt his scales shifting through colors rapidly. His body was reacting to stress in ways he had not experienced since his first combat mission decades ago. Humans have developed powerful immune systems because we had to, Danny said. We've evolved alongside all these diseases. Our bodies are constantly fighting infections that you couldn't even imagine. A simple cut on human skin starts healing immediately. Our blood clots to stop bleeding. Our white blood cells attack any foreign bacteria. Our body temperature rises to kill infections. We're built for biological warfare. A senior officer, a Korthian named Kith, stood up. Instructor Cooper, these facts are documented in the Coalition database. We know Earth is classified as a death world. But what is the point of telling us these horror stories? How does this make us better soldiers? Danny's expression became serious. Because I need you to understand something fundamental about humans. We grew up in an environment that was actively trying to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, weather, geological events. Everything on Earth is dangerous. Human children are taught from a very young age to watch for threats constantly. He walked closer to the assembled soldiers. You come from safe worlds where the biggest predators were hunted to extinction thousands of years ago. Where weather is predictable. Where diseases are rare. You've never had to develop the kind of constant threat awareness that humans consider normal, and that's what I'm here to teach you. He gestured at the holographic Earth still rotating above them. The third week of training arrived with a change in focus. Danny had spent the previous weeks talking about Earth's environment and wildlife. Now he was going to discuss combat, and Zixthor expected this to reveal the humans' inexperience. The captain had fought in 3 wars and commanded troops in dozens of battles. Surely a former sergeant from a planet new to space travel could not teach anything meaningful about galactic warfare. Once again, Zixthor was wrong. Danny began the morning session with a simple question. How many of you have been in actual combat? Real fighting, not training exercises. About half of the soldiers raised their hands or equivalent appendages. Zixthor raised his clawed hand as well. Good, Danny said. Then you know that combat never goes according to plan. You can prepare for months, Study every detail, plan every move. Then the first shot gets fired and everything falls apart. He touched his datapad and a holographic battlefield appeared above the training hall. It showed terrain, troop positions, and tactical markers. This is how we plan battles, Danny continued. Nice, organized, logical. You have objectives, supply lines, communication networks. Everything makes sense on the map. But combat is not a map. Combat is chaos. The hologram changed, showing confused movements, broken formations, and scattered units. Plans fall apart the moment you make contact with the enemy. Equipment fails. Communications break down. People panic. The side that wins is not usually the one with better technology or more firepower. It's the side that adapts fastest when everything goes wrong. A senior Valkyrian officer named Kith stood up. He was older than Zixthor and had even more combat experience. Instructor, you speak of chaos as if it is acceptable. Military doctrine exists for good reason. Structure and discipline win wars, not improvisation. Structure and discipline are critical, Danny agreed immediately. I'm not saying ignore your training. I'm saying that rigid thinking gets you killed. Let me give you a personal example. He pulled up a map of Afghanistan, a mountainous region on Earth. I served 3 tours in these mountains. The terrain was brutal. High altitude, extreme temperatures, limited roads. Our enemy did not have our technology or our air support or our resources, but they had been fighting in those mountains for generations. They knew every cave, every trail, every place to hide. Danny zoomed in on a narrow valley. My squad was on patrol here in the Korangal Valley. Local soldiers called it the Valley of Death. We were moving through a narrow trail on a mountainside when we got ambushed. Explosives destroyed our lead vehicle. Enemy fighters were shooting at us from higher positions on both sides of the valley. Our communications equipment was damaged. We couldn't call for help. The alien soldiers leaned forward, listening intently. Even Kith remained standing, interested despite his skepticism. By the book, we should have established a defensive position and waited for air support, Danny continued. Standard military doctrine for an ambush situation. Take cover, return fire, call for help. But our squad leader, a corporal named Jake Morris, made a different decision. Zixthor's scales shifted color slightly. He sensed what was coming. Jake decided we would attack directly uphill at the enemy positions, Danny said. We used smoke grenades for cover and charged straight at the fighters who were shooting at us. We ran uphill toward the enemy into their firing positions. The alien soldiers looked shocked. Several made sounds of disbelief. This violated every basic principle of military tactics taught in the coalition. It was insane, Danny admitted, completely against everything we had been trained to do. But Jake understood something important about humans. We're persistence predators. We don't give up. We don't know when to quit. And our enemies did not expect us to be crazy enough to charge uphill into their ambush. He showed tactical footage from the battle, recorded by helmet cameras. We took casualties. 3 of our squad were wounded. But we broke the ambush and captured the high ground. When air support finally arrived 20 minutes later, we were the ones giving them coordinates for remaining enemy positions. Danny looked at Kith. That's not in any manual, sir. That's human combat philosophy. When the situation demands it, be unpredictable enough that the enemy's plans become worthless. Make them react to you instead of making you react to them. Kith slowly sat down, his expression thoughtful. Over the following days, Danny shared more stories about human warfare. He described urban combat in cities where fighters moved through buildings room by room, never knowing what waited behind the next door. He explained counterinsurgency operations where victory meant understanding people and culture, not just having better weapons. But the session that truly disturbed the coalition soldiers came when Danny discussed acceptable losses. The coalition has rules about casualties, Danny noted, displaying military statistics. Operations are usually stopped if expected casualties exceed 5%. Force preservation is a primary directive in your military doctrine. The soldiers nodded. This was standard practice across all coalition species. Danny's expression became grave. Humans don't think that way. When our survival is at stake, we accept whatever cost is necessary. Let me tell you about the Battle of Stalingrad. For the next hour, Danny described a battle from Earth's Second World War, a battle that lasted 5 months. A single city where human armies fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible to the aliens listening. Over 2 million casualties, soldiers fighting with knives and tools when they ran out of bullets. both sides enduring winter temperatures that would have stopped any coalition military operation. This one battle had more casualties than all three of your frontier wars combined, Danny said quietly. And it was just one battle in a war that lasted 6 years and killed over 70 million humans. We fought that war with mid-20th century technology, chemical weapons, basic firearms, primitive aircraft. He let that information sink in before continuing. Imagine what humans can do now, with coalition technology and our willingness to pay any price for survival. The training hall was completely silent. Many of the alien soldiers looked deeply uncomfortable. Zixthor felt his scales turning pale blue again, the color of shock and recalculation. A young Trithenian recruit named Voss finally asked the question everyone was thinking. Instructor Cooper, why did humans agree to join the coalition military? If your species is this formidable, why ally with us at all? Danny's expression softened. It was the first time the aliens had seen him look truly gentle. Because we're also smart enough to know that cooperation is better than conflict. Humans have fought each other for our entire history. We know exactly what war costs. The pain, the death, the destruction. We don't want to fight unless we have no choice. He pulled up an image of Earth from space. The blue planet hung in the darkness, beautiful and fragile looking. Joining the coalition means we don't have to fight you. And you don't have to fight us. We can face threats together instead of wasting resources fighting each other. But make no mistake, Danny added, his voice firm. If something threatens humanity, we will fight with everything we have. Earth spent millions of years trying to kill us. We survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless wars. We're still here. We're survivors. And now we're in space. Zixthor looked at the image of Earth and finally understood the true value of humanity to the coalition. They were not just soldiers. They were survivors from a world that had tested them in every possible way. They had been shaped by constant danger into a species that refused to quit no matter what. That afternoon, Danny introduced a new training exercise. He divided the recruits into mixed species squads and gave them a scenario where everything went wrong. Their equipment malfunctioned. Their communications failed. Their commanders were listed as casualties. Enemy forces outnumbered them. Figure it out, Danny said simply. Adapt and survive. Zixthor watched from the observation room as the squad struggled with the exercise. At first, they tried to follow standard procedures that no longer applied. They waited for orders that would not come. They attempted to use equipment that was deliberately broken, but slowly, following Danny's lessons, they began to adapt. They improvised solutions. They worked together in new ways. They stopped waiting for permission and started taking initiative. One squad, led by a Velcarian named Zoth, particularly impressed the observers. When their primary route became blocked, they found another way. When their weapons stopped working, they used the environment as a weapon instead. When their formation broke apart, they regrouped and continued. They are learning, Zixthor said to Danny, who stood beside him watching the exercise. They're thinking like soldiers who understand that survival matters more than following rules, Danny replied. That's not specifically human. But we had to learn it early because Earth demanded it. Now your soldiers are learning it too. The exercise ended with most squads successfully completing their objectives despite all the obstacles. The improvement over their performance 3 weeks ago was remarkable. That evening, Zixthor found himself in his quarters reviewing footage from the training sessions. He watched Danny's stories about Earth's dangers and human warfare. He studied the recruits' progress and how they had changed their thinking. The captain had been a soldier for 40 years. The training program was entering its final phase when everything changed. Zixthor had grown to respect Danny's teaching methods, even though they remained unusual by coalition standards. The recruits had improved dramatically. Several senior officers had requested permission to extend the program and bring more soldiers through the training. Then Commander Vrax arrived on Kepler 442b. Vrax was a Korthian, one of the coalition's most respected warrior species. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 powerful arms. His body was covered in thick chitinous plates that served as natural armor. Korthians were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters who had conquered 17 star systems through military strength alone. Commander Vrax had come to inspect the training facility. He was a highly decorated officer, with a reputation for defeating opponents in personal combat. His arrival made many of the base personnel nervous. Korthians were not known for their patience with methods that differed from traditional warfare. Zixthor met Vrax at the landing bay. "Commander, welcome to Kepler 442b. I am Captain Zixthor, the senior officer assigned to this training facility." Vrax's mandibles clicked together, a gesture of acknowledgement. His four eyes surveyed the base with obvious assessment. "Captain, I have come to observe this human training program that has caused so much discussion in Coalition Command. I wish to see what makes it so special." "Of course, Commander. Instructor Cooper has a session beginning in 1 hour. You are welcome to attend." The training hall was crowded that day. Word of Vrax's inspection had spread, and many soldiers wanted to see how the famous Korthian commander would react to Danny's unconventional methods. Danny stood at the front of the hall, looking as relaxed as always. He noticed Vrax immediately. The massive Korthian was hard to miss, but Danny did not change his approach or seem intimidated by the commander's presence. "Today we're going to discuss human endurance and persistence," Danny began. "Most species in the galaxy are faster than humans, stronger than humans, have better senses than humans. But humans have one advantage that most species lack. We don't quit." He pulled up data showing human athletic achievements. Humans can run for hours without stopping. We have races where people run 160 kilometers through mountains and deserts. Some humans swim across oceans. We climb the highest mountains on Earth just because they exist. Danny showed footage of a human running across a desert. The person kept running hour after hour under the burning sun. This is called ultramarathon running. Some races last for days. The human body is designed for this. We sweat to cool ourselves, which lets us keep moving even in extreme heat. We can maintain a steady pace for incredible distances. Vrax shifted in his seat. His mandibles clicked in what Zixthor recognized as skepticism. The Korthian commander was not impressed by stories of running. "But let me tell you about persistence hunting," Danny continued. "This is how humans hunted for thousands of years before we developed advanced weapons. We would find an animal, usually something faster and stronger than us like an antelope or deer. Then we would chase it." He showed a map with tracking data. The animal would run away much faster than the human, but the human would keep following at a steady jog. The animal would rest thinking it was safe. The human would catch up. The animal would run again. This would continue for hours, sometimes 8 to 12 hours. Eventually, Danny explained, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. It was faster and stronger, but it could not maintain that speed. Humans could. We would literally chase animals until they died from being too tired to run anymore. That's what I mean by persistence. Some of the alien soldiers looked disturbed by this description. It seemed cruel and relentless. When Danny finished his presentation, Vrax stood up. His 3-meter height made everyone in the hall look small. His voice was deep and resonant, translated by the devices everyone wore. "I have listened to these stories for an hour," Vrax announced. "The human speaks of running and chasing as if these are military skills. He describes how his planet has weather and animals, as though this compares to real combat experience. He suggests that humans are special warriors because they come from a dangerous world." Danny remained calm, though Zixthor noticed the human's posture shift slightly. He was preparing for confrontation. "Commander, I never said humans were special or superior." Danny replied evenly. "I said we're different. We bring particular skills that work well alongside coalition forces." "Words," Vrax dismissed with a click of his mandibles. "You tell stories to impress young recruits who have never faced true battle. But stories are not proof of ability. The Korthians have conquered worlds through strength and skill. We are the elite warriors of the coalition. Your species are newcomers who have only fought primitive wars on one planet." The tension in the hall grew thick. Other Korthian soldiers in the audience clicked their mandibles in agreement with their commander. Some of the recruits looked uncomfortable, caught between respect for Danny and deference to a senior officer. Zixthor moved to intervene, but Danny held up his hand in a small gesture asking the captain to wait. "Commander Vrax, I respect your service record," Danny said carefully. "I'm not here to claim humans are better fighters than Korthians. I'm here to share our experiences and teach adaptation. That's all." Vrax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of contempt in Korthian body language. "Then let us test these experiences. Korthian tradition allows for challenge combat to settle disputes about warrior status. I challenge you to single combat in the training arena. No weapons, no armor, no technology. We will see if your Deathworld truly makes you a match for a real warrior." The training hall erupted in murmurs and shocked sounds. Challenge combat was legal under coalition military law but rarely used. It was considered archaic by most species, but Korthians maintained the tradition, and no one could refuse a formal challenge without admitting they were not a warrior. Danny looked at Zixthor. The captain gave a small, helpless gesture. He could not intervene without insulting both parties and creating a diplomatic incident. "Commander, I don't think that's necessary," Danny began. "Are humans cowards as well as storytellers?" Vrax demanded loudly. "Accept the challenge or admit that your tales are empty. Exaggerations meant to impress fools." Something changed in Danny's expression. The friendly, casual demeanor disappeared. His face became calm and hard. Zixthor had seen that look before on veteran soldiers who had been pushed to their limit. "All right," Danny said quietly. "I accept your challenge. When and where?" "Tomorrow at midday," Vrax declared. "The main training arena. We will use Coalition standard combat rules. The fight ends with submission, clear incapacitation, or voluntary withdrawal. No permanent harm intended, but no restrictions on technique." "Understood," Danny agreed. "I'll be there." Vrax departed, followed by the other Korthian soldiers. The training session dissolved into anxious conversations. Many of the recruits were worried. They had come to respect Danny and did not want to see him hurt. After everyone else left, Zixthor approached Danny. "Instructor, I must speak honestly. Korthians are extremely dangerous opponents. Commander Vrax has won 23 challenge combats. He outweighs you by perhaps 150 kilograms. He has 4 arms to your 2. His natural armor will protect him from most strikes. This is not a fair contest," Danny's slight smile returned. "Captain, remember what I said about persistence predators? We don't need fair. We just need to be too stubborn to quit." "This is not a lesson worth learning at the cost of serious injury," Zixthor said, genuine concern in his voice. "I appreciate your worry," Danny replied, "but sometimes the best teaching happens through demonstration. Trust me, Captain, I've been in worse situations than this." That night, Zixthor could not sleep. He spent hours researching human combat sports and military hand-to-hand training. What he discovered both fascinated and worried him. Humans had developed dozens of fighting systems over thousands of years. They had martial arts from every continent on their planet. They fought for sport in ways that would hospitalize most coalition species. Human close-quarters combat training was designed for situations where showing mercy was not an option. They learned to strike vital points, break joints, and use leverage to defeat larger opponents. It was brutal and efficient. But would it be enough against a Korthian warrior? The next day, the main arena was packed. Nearly every soldier on the base who was not on essential duty had come to watch. Many had come to support Danny. Others, particularly the Korthian contingent, expected a quick victory that would prove human inferiority. The atmosphere was electric with tension and anticipation. Vrax entered first. His chitinous plates gleamed under the bright arena lights. He performed traditional Korthian combat movements, displaying his forearm strength and reach. His soldiers cheered and clicked their mandibles in support. Then Danny entered wearing simple athletic clothing. He looked impossibly small next to the massive Korthian commander. He did not perform any ritual display. He just stretched briefly and rolled his shoulders to loosen his muscles. Zixthor stood at the arena's edge as the senior officiating officer. "This combat challenge follows coalition standard rules. Fight until submission, clear incapacitation, or voluntary withdrawal." For a long moment, Commander Vrax struggled against Danny's hold. His superior strength should have allowed him to break free easily. But the human's position was technically perfect. Danny's arm was positioned precisely across Vrax's throat, restricting blood flow to his brain. His legs were hooked around the Korthian's body, preventing escape. It was pure leverage and technique defeating raw power. Vrax's movements became weaker as oxygen deprivation affected him. The massive Korthian warrior realized he had 2 choices: submit now with dignity, or lose consciousness and submit through incapacitation. Finally, Vrax tapped the ground with his free hand, the universal submission signal. Danny released immediately and helped the Korthian commander back to his feet. Both fighters were breathing heavily, covered in sweat, but neither appeared seriously injured. The arena was completely silent. Everyone was processing what they had just witnessed. A human, smaller and weaker by every physical measure, had defeated one of the coalition's most formidable warriors through pure technical skill and adaptability. Then, Unexpectedly, Vrax let out a barking laugh. The sound echoed through the silent arena. His mandibles clicked rapidly in what Zixthor recognized as genuine respect and amusement. "I understand now," Vrax announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the arena. "You fight like we do, with commitment and without hesitation. But you have refined combat into a technical art that overcomes physical disadvantages. Your Deathworld did not just make you tough, it made you smart about survival." Danny shook his head slightly. "Not warriors, Commander, survivors. There's an important difference. But I'm glad we could reach an understanding." Vrax extended one of his forearms in a gesture of respect. "I withdraw my earlier statements. Humanity deserves its place in the Coalition military. Perhaps we Korthians have something to learn from your Deathworld experiences after all." The arena erupted in cheers from the assembled soldiers. The sound was deafening, a mixture of relief, excitement, and celebration. Zixthor felt something unusual, pride in a species that was not his own. The human had demonstrated exactly what he had been teaching: adaptation, technical skill, and the absolute refusal to quit even when facing overwhelming odds. Later, in the medical bay, both Danny and Vrax were examined for injuries. Minor bruises and strained muscles, but nothing serious. Zixthor found Danny sitting on an examination table while a medic checked his ribs. "That was an impressive victory, instructor," the captain said. Danny winced slightly as the medic pressed on his side. "It wasn't about winning, Captain. It was about showing what humans can do when we need to. Commander Vrax is an excellent fighter. In different circumstances with different variables, he might have beaten me easily. But today I had the technical advantage and I used it." "You could have seriously injured him," Zixthor observed. "That hold could have rendered him unconscious." "But I didn't," Danny replied, "because the goal wasn't to hurt him. It was to earn his respect and prove a point. That's another thing about humans, Captain. We know when to show mercy. We can be as gentle as we are fierce, depending on what the situation requires." Zixthor's scales shifted to a thoughtful color pattern. "Your species continues to surprise me, Instructor Cooper. I believe humanity will change the Coalition in ways we cannot yet predict." Over the following week, Danny's training sessions evolved significantly. Word of his victory over Vrax had spread throughout Coalition space. Suddenly, the human training program was receiving attention from the highest levels of military command. But Danny did not let the attention change his approach. He continued teaching, though now he emphasized different lessons. He still shared stories about Earth's dangers and human military history, but now he focused more on cooperation, innovation, and cultural exchange. One afternoon session particularly resonated with the Coalition soldiers. Danny brought up holographic images of Earth's space station, a massive structure that orbited the planet. This was built in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Danny explained. At that time, Earth was divided into almost 200 separate nations. Many of them had conflicts and disagreements. Some had been enemies for centuries, but for this project, they worked together. He showed images of humans from different nations working side by side in space: Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts, Japanese engineers and European scientists. They built something together that none of them could have built alone. "That's the real lesson I want you to understand." A Quixley officer named Zeth raised a tentacle. "Instructor, your world's history is filled with wars between human factions. How did you overcome those divisions?" Danny nodded, expecting the question. "We haven't completely overcome them. Humans still have disagreements and conflicts. But we learned something important through our history. Our similarities are greater than our differences. Every human culture, despite surface variations, shares fundamental values. We protect our families. We create art and music. We seek knowledge. We care for our sick. We mourn our dead." He pulled up an image of Earth taken from deep space. The planet appeared as a tiny blue dot against the darkness. This photo was taken from 6 billion kilometers away. Earth looks impossibly small. Everything that every human has ever done, every war we fought, every achievement we made, all happened on that tiny dot. When we look at ourselves from that perspective, our conflicts seem less important. The training hall was quiet as the soldiers absorbed this message. "That's what joining the Coalition meant to us," Danny continued. "It was a chance to be part of something bigger, to work with other species toward common goals, to face threats together instead of wasting resources fighting each other." The final training exercise brought together everything Danny had taught over the past month. The recruits were divided into mixed species squads and placed in a complex simulation. The scenario included environmental hazards, equipment failures, limited resources, and unexpected combat situations. Zixthor monitored the exercise from the command center. He expected good results based on the improvements he had seen, but what actually happened exceeded his expectations significantly. Squad after squad demonstrated the lessons they had learned. They improvised solutions when equipment failed. They used environmental features creatively. They adapted tactics when situations changed unexpectedly. Most importantly, they worked together seamlessly, combining the strengths of different species. One squad, led by the Trithenian recruit Voss, was particularly impressive. When their primary objective became blocked by a simulated geological event, they identified an alternate approach that was not in any manual. A Valkyrian soldier used climbing ability to reach a high vantage point. A Quixley used technical skills to override a security system. A human squad member suggested a flanking maneuver based on Earth military tactics. They succeeded through cooperation and adaptation. They are thinking differently now, Zixthor observed to Danny, who stood beside him in the command center. They're thinking like soldiers who understand that adaptation is more important than rigid doctrine. Danny replied, "That's not specifically human. We just had to learn it earlier because Earth forced us to. Now they've learned it too." The graduation ceremony was attended by senior coalition officers from across the sector. Commander Vrax came as well, having become one of the program's strongest supporters. Zixthor gave the formal address praising the recruits' improvement and dedication. Then Danny stepped forward for closing remarks. He kept them brief and heartfelt. "When I started this training, I told you stories about Earth's dangers because I wanted you to understand where humans come from. But here's the most important lesson. Every species in the coalition has its own strengths forged by its own challenges. Valkyrians have exceptional spatial awareness. Trithenians process information faster than any other species. Corthians have physical capabilities that humans cannot match. Quixley can interface with technology in ways we're still learning to understand." He looked across the assembled graduates. "The point was never to make you more human. It was to show you that different perspectives and experiences make us all stronger together. When we face threats in this galaxy, our diversity is our greatest advantage. Learn from each other, adapt to each other's strengths, cover each other's weaknesses. That's how we'll survive and thrive among the stars." The ceremony concluded with traditional coalition military honors, but something new was added. Each human instructor, including Danny, received tokens of respect from the graduates, small objects from their various homeworlds symbolizing partnership and shared purpose. Later, Zixthor found Danny preparing to depart for his next assignment. The human was packing his belongings, including dozens of gifts from soldiers. "I wanted to thank you personally, Instructor Cooper," the captain said. "When you arrived, I questioned the wisdom of placing you in charge of coalition recruits. I was wrong. Your methods have changed how I think about military training and cooperation between species." Danny smiled and extended his hand. This time, Zixthor took it firmly, having learned the gesture's significance over the past weeks. "Thank you, Captain. That means a lot coming from you. You were skeptical but willing to listen and learn. That's exactly the attitude we need in the coalition.